Good morning Year 3s and 4s. Today I'm going to be showing you how to use the Key Stage 2 writing booklet that you've been given. In the writing booklet there are lots of activities that look exactly like this. So you have a picture, a story starter, some questions, a sentence challenge and then some 6 sentences. And the idea is that you read the story starter and then you use this information, these different bits here, to carry that story on and write a story of yourself using this picture and this story starter. So what we're going to be looking at today, I've chosen one that I really like the picture of and that I like the story starter. It's a number 4 in your book and it's all about the mountain Hrothgar. What I'm going to do is I'll read the story starter to you now and then we're going to have a little look today at how we can use adjectives to describe a setting, and then tomorrow we'll come back to it again and we're going to look at adverbs. So to start off with, I'll read you the story starter. The mountain of High Hrothgar had stood proudly for thousands of years, casting a solemn shadow for miles around. Few dared to venture close to its base, let alone scale its heights, fearing what awaited them at the summit. For one brave adventurer, the folklore surrounding the mysteries of High Hrothgar provided an opportunity just too tempting to resist. Some called him courageous, others foolish, but it mattered not to him now. Bracing himself against a torrent of icy wind that rushed towards him down a narrow pass, the lone figure prepared himself for the challenge ahead. He took a deep breath, feeling the frozen air rush into his lungs, and took a bold step onto the path to High Hrothgar. Now, first of all, for the first thing, but when you're looking at continuing your story, the first thing to look at is this part here that says question time. So down here, there's lots of things just to think about, things that you might want to be including in the rest of your story. So on here it says, who is the adventurer in the story? Can you think of a good name for him? Why does he want to climb High Hrothgar? Why are people afraid of the mountain? What do you think awaits him at the top? What might the adventurer be carrying with him? So the first thing that you might like to do after you've read your story starter is you might like to just have a look at these questions here, and you might want to just jot some answers down to these questions here. That would be like when we're at school, when we do your planning for a story. That would be like your planning. It's your ideas, it's the things that this story starter makes you think of. The next bit is where we start to think about your actual sentences that you're going to be writing. Now, today our focus is on adjectives, and if you'll see on the post that I've put on the Y34 pages, I've also put a link to the bite-size lesson for today for Year 3 lesson, which is all about adjectives. So if you want to learn a little bit extra about adjectives, you can have a look on there if you want to as well, and there's some videos and some activities. So what we're going to be looking at today is we're going to look at, first of all, we're going to identify some adjectives. Then we're going to have a go at writing some sentences to describe some of the setting that we're going to be talking about and that you would need to be including in your story. We're going to have a look at some adjectives that we can use to describe that setting. So the first thing that would be nice for you to do is, if you have this little extract, first thing would be really good is for you to identify and find the adjectives in that story starter. So an adjective is a word that describes a noun, and a noun is a naming word. Now, I'm not going to do the whole of this for you because I want you to do it for yourself, so I've just taken a very small short first paragraph. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a little look at how you could do this. So we're going to read it, and all we're going to do is we're going to underline any adjectives we see. Now, there isn't very many in this first bit, but we can have a little look so I can just show you what to do. So, the mountain of High Hrothgar had stood proudly for thousands of years, casting a solemn shadow for miles around. Now we're looking for the noun because the adjective is the word that describes the noun. So the mountain is a noun. We haven't got any adjectives next to that word mountain, no, so we haven't got any adjectives there. The mountain of High Hrothgar, High Hrothgar is the name of the mountain, had stood proudly. So we've got a verb, stood, and we've got an adverb, proudly. We'll be looking at adverbs in more detail tomorrow. For thousands of years, casting a solemn shadow for miles around. So our next noun is shadow, and we do have an adjective in front of the word shadow. We have the word solemn. Now, a little challenge for you. If anyone could add a note onto the post for this, what does the word solemn mean? Clarify that word. You could look it up in a dictionary, or if you already know what the definition of that word is already, have a go at writing. So a little challenge for you there. So that's our first adjective we have there. So the first activity that you can do is you can continue doing what I've just done there. So looking through the next 2 paragraphs, and all you're doing is finding those nouns and seeing if there is an adjective next to them, a word that describes the noun. So that's your first activity. The next thing, like I said, that we're going to look at is we're now going to look at our sentence challenge. So the sentence challenge for today says, can you use your sentences to describe the mountain pass to High Hrothgar? What can you see, hear, smell, feel and taste? Think about the following things. So we're going to have a little look at one of these, and we're going to look at how we could write a sentence that includes an adjective to describe the things that you might see. If you were the adventurer who was climbing up the mountain to High Hrothgar, what might you see and how would you describe what you could see? So we're just going to focus today on the path, the wind and the trees. So if you look at the picture that we have, and the picture's attached to, is in the booklet, that's this picture here, you can see that there's a path there. Now this path, I would say, the first thing I would say is it's covered in snow, so it's covered in icy snow. It's very rocky and windy. Some other adjectives I think I might fit. It's crooked, it's a crooked path. So I would say we're describing, we aren't the adventurer, we're talking about the adventurer. So I'm going to put the adventurer, so he, I'm going to use the pronoun he looked ahead at and this is where we're going to describe the path. Now, like I said, I liked the words. I think we said crooked. We could say, I said crooked. I said snowy. I said winding. I think snowy, we're going to talk about the snow in a minute. So I think I quite like winding and crooked. So he looked ahead at the winding crooked path. So all I've done there simply is I've just added 2 adjectives before it. I wouldn't really add many more than 2. You could change them a little bit, you could put them near the beginning or at the end, but not too many. We don't want a big long list of adjectives. Just choose the best ones that you have. So the next thing it says to look at is the wind. So how would we describe the wind? We could describe the wind as whistling wind. So he could hear. What about in the distance? I always like that as an adverbial starter. It's a preposition, isn't it? In the distance, he could hear the whistling wind. And the next thing that it asked us to look at was the trees. Now, I'm thinking I might use a simile for the trees because I love thinking about similes and it's a really good way of describing a setting. So the trees are very bare. Looking at this picture, they're very bare and they're winding and reaching around the rocks like fingers. Okay, so I'm going to write a sentence that's it's using a simile to describe the trees. So the bare, so there's our first adjective, the bare trees reached around the rocks. And this is where I'm going to add my simile in, like fingers. Full full stop. So that's what I'd like you to have a go at today. I'd like you to have a go at looking at that picture and seeing if you could write some sentences to describe what the adventurer might see as he's walking up that path towards High Hrothgar, and use the ideas that are on this sheet to help you with the things that you could describe, and use some adjectives. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy this activity.